Hello and welcome to Design Education Talks by the New Art School. Our guest today is John McFaul. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Lefteris. It's great to be here.
And it's wonderful to have you here. So tell us about you and your work.
Okay, where to begin? So I'm John McFaul. I'm an executive creative director. I'm a brand consultant. I'm an educator. But I kind of see those things as just coordinates rather than a full description. I've been lucky to work closely with some of the world's most iconic lifestyle and performance brands. But my career has been about building brands with soul, not shallow engagement, not fleeting trends. I guess the story has been shaped by curiosity, creativity, and definitely a refusal to stay in my lane, if there is my lane. So it might be worth going backwards and sharing an abridged version of how I got to where I am today. So I grew up on the Wirral, passed an 11 plus, surprisingly, got to Wirral Grammar School for Boys and did okay, but the school didn't really get me. I could draw, I always could, but that didn't really hold too much value when everyone was intent on going to Oxbridge. So when other people did pack to go to Oxbridge, I went to Wirral Metropolitan College to study foundation in art and design, which at the time I thought, and I think my tutors thought, was a huge failure. It wasn't. I wasn't. It felt like the beginning, and it really lit a fire in me that's been burning ever since. So from there, when I say it lit a fire, it was because I met the most amazing people, my tribe for the first time, realised that I wasn't such... The thing is, I've never really felt like I was, ill-educated, or I was always very curious. So I didn't really understand that I didn't learn like everybody else, I don't think. And I couldn't go by academia, just didn't suit me, I don't think. So I met the most wonderful people who were very, very like me, my tribe, like I say. And it really began... It just gave me some impetus, I think. So from there, I went to Kingston University under the amazingly wonderful eye of Brian Love, that I know that you know very well too, or God rest his soul, wonderful person. Actually became quite a father figure to me, where I found an even bigger voice, I guess, and realised that being creatively different was a huge strength, spiritually, culturally, physically. Obviously lost myself a few times too, which is good. All my weirdness, obsessions and creative emotion actually had a place. And again, such great people around me. I think Knights Park campus it just seemed to be the thing that I needed at that point in my life. Not that I'd led a sheltered life at all in Liverpool and around the world. It was just great, and it was this melting pot of an awful lot of disciplines. You had architects and fashion people and illustrators and graphic designers. Of course, what I forgot to say was I studied illustration there. So the people just so talented, so wide and wonderful in their interests and knowledge. And I'm still really close to a lot of them now. So from there, I went on to study an MA in graphic design at St. Martin's. If I'm honest with you, don't really know why I did that. I was already getting a lot of freelance work at the time, so it only lasted 3 months. And so I thought there's no point in carrying on there. I think it was more prestige than anything else. I think by then I was already realising who I was and who I wasn't, which has continued with me throughout my career. I think I'm a rather amorphous shape, which has caused me as much trouble and heartache in my career as it has joy. I was really I was never really just an illustrator. I was, or a designer, or even an executive creative director these days. I don't come under any of those guises. I struggle with those terms. I simply don't fit into neat little boxes that culture tends to want to put us in. I live at the intersections, art, music, fashion, culture. I guess I just see patterns and connect dots, and that's what I do. That's what my life is, I think. So at the time, back then, can't quite remember when it was, late 90s, early 2000s, those creatives, we creatives who had harnessed the opportunity and possibility of working on a Macintosh computer were coined, illustrators at the time, I think, were called the young upstarts because we were making something different. We were using these computers that I'm looking at now as a tool, as much as, we've been using tools for, forever. We weren't illustrators, weren't graphic designers, we were more than that. Image makers, that was coined a few times. I don't know what the term was, who knows. Anyway, we're pushing boundaries, illustration, animation, design. So I'm whizzing through this, do excuse me. So in, I think, the early 2000s, I need to look at dates here, I founded a collective of misfits, I think, called Black Convoy, with a guy called Richard May, who was another well-known illustrator at the time. At the time, I was getting an awful lot of work, actually, from Virgin Atlantic. It was kind of, you could see it in big billboards here, there and everywhere. Working with some really impressive brands that Casio. I did an awful lot of work in Carnaby Street for Casio. Anyway, we founded this collective of other misfits at the time, and the Arts Council jumped on us rather quickly. I began to be able to write a really good proposal, steep learning curve there. And we had shows and events in London, New York, Singapore, whatever we were doing elsewhere, we'd bring back and show it to future generations and universities and things like that as soon as we came back, just to extol the virtues of getting out there and trying to do things. And off the back of that, I was still getting an awful lot of work myself, and because I was getting an awful lot of work, too much work, I started McFaulStudio, which was my first big agency. Incidentally, my first employee, my first member of staff, was a guy called Ollie Munden, and he was an ex-student of mine at the Sur Institute, so that was great. Anyway, I'm just linking things here. So McFaulStudio, multidisciplinary, built an exceptional team around me, award-winning, works with Nike, Brand Jordan, Havaianas, Kid Robot, Carhartt, agents both sides of the Atlantic. It grew so fast, hard to keep and hold of. And by then I was certainly not a businessman. I was a creative thrust into it, and because I had this, it's not that I didn't say no, I said a yes a lot of the time. It's on my own detriment from time to time. I didn't really see what was coming. So in 2008 or 2007, 2008, it all came crashing down because the credit crunch, which for me was pretty devastating, because I had an awful lot of mouths to feed, including 2 children of my own, very young children. And it was just a lesson in how quickly the rug can be pulled from under you. I'd learned a thing or two about business right then, things that I would never do again. And then my team just seeped into other design hotshots at the time, the Volt 49s, the I Love Dusts, and I went solo. And that led to all sorts of projects, I think. But at the time, I was also, previous to that, I was always engaged in conversation with magazines and the media. So I think people knew who I was and what was happening. I was very open about it all. In fact, we all had to be very open because it was very evident what was happening to the industry. So I went solo, started working with several people, took a TV channel to broadcast, provided the design work for the launch of Internet Explorer 9 at South by Southwest. And then I had an opportunity to move to New York to work with Pepsi Cola. We'd been previously working with Pepsi before that through a company called Safari Sundays. They invited me out to work on Pepsi Max, and that was phenomenal. It didn't really work out in the end, but it was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And it was where I think that was the platform for the rest of my career, because I learnt about how brand, I learnt about marketing, I learnt about how people think, I learnt about other cultures, other societies. At the time, basically, I was just aligning a DJ in Calvin Harris with Didier Drogba, Lionel Messi, footballers, and just seeing how these things collide and sell product. And New York as well, I think we were out there and the kids were 4 and 2, and it was a wonderful experience for everybody, I think. It was nice to share it with everybody too. So I was back in the UK by 2012. Once again, I consulted with certain brands and sports and lifestyle brands, actually. There were just certain things that I didn't want to do anymore. I didn't like the idea of me peddling sugary drinks to kids. I've always been a little bit at odds with what I do, and I wanted to do certain things. So I was working with a handful of sports and lifestyle brands, essentially startups, And then along came the wonderful Justin Day. Quickly, we became McFaul and Day. Quickly, we built an agency, the right people doing the right things. And within no time, we had the likes of New Balance, Osprey, Fjord Specialized as clients. And again, incredible teams, incredible years, incredible clients. It's been pretty wild, really, I think. And here we are today. I've missed out a little bit at the end there because I think I'd like to go over that in a little bit more detail, and that's about why McFaul Day closed. But it's kind of who I am.
That's wonderful. So, of course, we're going to talk a lot about education as well. But
talk about what, sorry?
Education.
I got into education through Jane Webster. So Jane Webster was a year above me in Kingston University. She, at the time, was teaching graphic design on the foundation courses, the then Surrey Institute of Art and Design. And she brought me in to study, to teach it too, with her. She quickly then moved over to the graphic design BA course at Surrey Institute, leaving me on my Todd to run the graphic design part of the foundation course. And I did that for a couple of years, I think. And then from there, I moved. Obviously, I met an awful lot of tutors there. Met the most wonderful guy called Callum Mackenzie, who at the time was writing a graphic design new media course. So it would sit aside from the graphic design course, and it was essentially dealing with, well, right here, right now, what was happening to graphic design and how it was translating into the digital arena, essentially, and more. Anyway, Callum's now Dean at the School of Media and Communication, UAL, I think. Anyway, it was experimental, industry-facing. We were all learning in real time, bringing that energy into the classroom. We had this team of, I would say we were movers and shakers of the time. We were getting an awful lot of press. Anyway, it felt more like a studio, more like a community, us and the students, than anything else. And I was senior lecturer there for 3 or 4 years. Wonderful. I think it really set me up for life, I think, in many, many ways. And a lot of the learnings I've taken on and continue with throughout my career. Since then, I've taught around the world, in the UK, obviously, US, Canada, most recently at the University of Portsmouth, which I've done for a few years. Gone in, and I think that course punches way above its weight. It really does. I've got a real soft spot for it under Sarah Houghton. Ambitious students, ambitious tutors. I've got a lot of respect for what they're trying to do there, especially in this climate that we're in. So when we talk about education, I can talk about these institutes, colleges, universities, but I do it also in my work. The reason why I am an executive creative director, and I was before that a creative director, I've always been a leader, I've set up agencies, is because I like to do things with others, and I like to champion them, I like to mentor them, I like to further their careers. It gives me great joy. So me as an educator, me as a leader, they're the same. It doesn't matter where I'm doing it, I will always be doing it. It's absolutely fundamental to who I am and what I do.
Of course. You often speak about the quiet art of showing up, shaping clarity slowly. How does this mindset translate into your teaching and mentoring style?
It's a daily thing. I think I do talks sometimes where I'm showing some of the work that I've done in my life, and I think, some of the students are probably looking at it thinking, there's no way on earth I'm going to be able to deliver brand guidelines for a brand like New Balance or something. And if you'd asked me back when I was late teens, early 20s, I'd probably say the same thing. But you do what you do, and you have your practice, and you turn up every day, and you learn more, and you're inquisitive, you're curious. It's a life's work, and you get better, and you get more knowledgeable, you have more experience, and it's creativity to me is not about what you do on a Mac or a drawing or anything like that. It's more of an amorphous thing. It's more of an interconnectedness of things. Because you have that experience, turning up and learning and having life skills and all these things that provide a better base for tomorrow. That's how you get to where you want to get to. And it's true, I do talk about turning up all the time. I do talk about that as practice, because some days are absolute garbage, but other days are something that sets you free.
Absolutely.
You just don't know. And that in itself is wonderful. Right?
Absolutely. So how do you inspire students to use process, which of course takes longer, over choosing quick results?
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Well, process is a good word, isn't it? It's, we talk so much about this, and, it's about allowing yourself time to fail, to make mistakes, honestly, I've learned more from my mistakes than I have from my wins, honestly. And I would say everyone would say the same thing. I can't help but feeling that we live in a culture right now where everything needs to be really polished, and it's not right. It's not giving us an opportunity.
Absolutely. Mistakes
are essential. That process really matters. Figuring it out is the work, right? That's what this is all about. So I think my job as a leader, as an educator, is to champion and mentor the development of self and process. That's what I do.
Yes, absolutely. No, this is wonderful. But how do you get the students to do that as well?
It's difficult to do that now.
I know.
Because I think, was it Alain de Botton said, social media has made us all into brands, curating ourselves rather than being ourselves. It's about, you're teaching people to sort of disregard what social media is doing. You're trying to put your arm around them and say, why don't you just try this instead? It goes against the grain. How you do that in a studio situation is very difficult. It's extremely difficult, but that's because the studio situation is very difficult as well right now. It's all interlinked. Trying to champion the messy bits is very difficult.
Yeah, it begins with result anxiety. The students, because of the increase in pressures right now.
Yes.
Are trying to say, okay, what kind of design graphics work will get me a job?
Yeah.
So they're trying to second guess the outside rather than going inside about discovering who they are. So the question is really, how do we get students to discover who they truly are? And it's a very scary process, especially for this generation.
Yeah, it really is. I think probably more so than ever. But I think certain things have been... what I don't want this to be is a slur on design education at the moment. I think it's trying its best. Maybe it isn't, I don't know. But I think all the good stuff that brings you to a place where you're ready to learn about this stuff has been taken away. We used to talk about foundation courses, the place where you unlearn school. You unlearn all the... It's not nonsense for everybody, but it was nonsense for me. Sure, I didn't do too badly, and I think I was the first or second year of GCSEs. I didn't do too badly, but it was a struggle, left terrace. It was a huge struggle. But you're taking these things away. Foundation at the moment is... My youngest daughter is about to... she's finishing she's got a year's worth of GCSEs left. And then she's going off and she's looking at creative schools to do stuff. Going onwards. Doesn't quite know what she wants to do, which is great. Went to an open day at a college quite close to us, and it was wonderful. Not what I expected, because they were talking about the need, the desire for more foundation courses where people could really find themselves. And what I mean by finding themselves, it's not about creativity per se. It's about life skills. It's about really putting yourself in a position where putting yourself up to the light and actually understanding who you are and what's going on, and are you feeling pressured into this? Or do you just want to do your own thing and actually start your life properly? Yeah, I think there's an awful lot to be said for bringing foundation courses back in. I don't think that's the be-all and end-all. It's not the answer, but it's certainly a good suggestion for a beginning. I see students coming in, starting their degree courses, and they've almost, in their own minds, they know what they want to be before they've finished. And
absolutely.
How would you possibly know that? I still don't really know, and I'm in my 50s. And that's the beauty of it for me. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. But you need to be agile enough. Agile's a good word, isn't it? To be able to morph and move and just go with everything. I mean, creativity is changing so quickly right now. With AI as well, and there's the naysayers and the detractors, but what if you look at it slightly differently and just think, actually, it could be really beneficial if you harness it properly? What harness it properly means, I'm still trying to work that out, but that in itself is actually exciting to me.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I could go on and on and on. But to your question, I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of things that I would want to. It's almost like we need to look backwards.
Absolutely.
Go backwards a little bit and actually understand why it was so good for so long. And don't forget, we were, in terms of the world and creativity, we were leaders. We were. Are we now? I'm not so sure. And there's a reason for that.
Of course.
Yeah.
We've mixed oil and water.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So this is a long conversation, but we'll get onto that slowly. You've spoken about beginning with empathy, listening loudly, and acting with intention. Again, how does that go into your teaching?
See, this is where my life, my career, aligns with how I would teach students. And it's about just reading beyond, listening beyond your silo. And by silo, I mean, even graphic designers just looking at graphic designers.
Yeah.
Illustrators just looking at illustrators. Go beyond that into creativity, fashion, architecture, design, fine art, whatever. Go beyond that. Politics, culture, economics, philosophy, psychology. I mean, that's absolutely fundamental to what I do. It's that. So you spend time outside of your box, and these are life skills. This is the agility. This is the understanding. This is, I guess, we should be teaching that, and we should always have been teaching that, because I think all the greats, that's what they do. They understand the consumer. They understand people. They understand culture. They understand the world that we live in right now. And in order to do that, then we need to bring the students along and talk to them in a way that, or reinforce it continuously. Where are you looking? What are you reading? Get off social media, for goodness sake, because it's an echo chamber. It's harder now. It is much harder now. Am I answering your question?
Yeah. I mean, there's no answer. It's what you want to talk about. This is your podcast, as I always say. You've also spoken about not to command from a distance and to show up fully.
Yes.
Again, these are very interesting concepts, and I'd like to know more about how you apply these.
See, this is a difficult one, because I wear my heart on my sleeve. I really do. And it doesn't matter what situation I'm in, what room I'm in. You get me every time, 100%. So I think it's absolutely imperative, that I give 100%. So whatever I'm doing, I'm committed to it. So if I'm teaching students, I'm committed to these students, and they will get everything from me. I will be as honest as I can possibly be. Sometimes too honest. I don't think there's such a thing. It's the same with my teams. I'm very honest. To my detriment sometimes. There have been learnings from my side. But it's who I am, and I think, we're creatives. We do wear our heart on our sleeves, and that's how it should be. And I think we're here to, in an education sense, we're here to inspire. And you can only really inspire when you give your all. you know.
Yeah, of course, of course.
You know, and it goes back to the reason why that new media course was so successful, I think. In the end, I don't think it was that successful, but for the first few years, this connection we had with 2 or 3 years worth of students was so tight. It was a community, it was an agency, yes, because we were 100% giving to each other at all times, because we knew it was against the odds, it was against the grain, it was something new, it was wild and wonderful. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think that's why my teams have been so successful over the years. It's because you're thrust together in this strange situation, you know, and you're working together on really high profile things that could really mess up if we got it wrong. But together, if we say the right things to each other, if we keep it open and we say those right things, and don't forget, you know, this goes for how I talk to clients, you know, key stakeholders in huge businesses. It's that honesty. It's that turning up 100% all of the time. It's exhausting, but it's so rewarding.
Absolutely. You also stress that leadership is not about the spotlight, it's about the ripple. So again, how do we get that into design education?
How do we do that? Yes. How we get it into education in, you know, across the board, I don't, maybe I'll be able to answer that in a minute, but how I do it is about understanding students, trying to understand each and every one of them, who they are, what they are, the current capabilities, the future capabilities, or what they want out of life. And I think this is what I mean about, you know, you need to get outside your box. You need to really understand who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with and how you're dealing with it. So I take great pleasure in lifting people up and saying, you can do this, you know, because, and again, like I was saying before about showing people my work or the brand guidelines for New Balance, they're thinking, how the heck do I get to do those things? And I'm saying, well, you can if you just turn up day after day and you get better and better. And it's just that reinforcement all the time and actually shining a light on them and actually showing when they're doing great, you know, telling people that these people are doing great, showing in front of the rest of the students these people are doing great. I do it to my team too. You know, I really, you know, I take great pleasure in it, champion that. I think tutors, it's difficult, isn't it? Which is going to go into another question perhaps, but, you know, tutors have got a lot less time now than they ever had.
Yeah.
A lot less face-to-face, a lot less studio time, a lot less community time. And so an awful lot of feedback comes written, and I just don't think that's right. I think.
No, do you remember we used to have to write our own feedback? They were giving us oral feedback, and we used to frantically write it down so we wouldn't miss a word. I've been saying that for such a long time.
Yeah.
Because if there's no interest, you know, I believe that these questions, you know, what we're talking about is greater than our teaching.
Absolutely.
You know, it goes outside our teaching. So, you know, written feedback, as you said, is, yeah. Because if the students don't feel, sorry.
Go on.
No.
Yeah, I think students, they seem to be so solo now.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Solo
exactly.
pursuit.
If they don't feel supported in any way, in general,
yeah,
they will not feel relaxed enough to let go, you know, of the preconceptions.
And also, I think with certain generations now, and I'm witnessing this firsthand with my own children, just being able to talk, just being able to communicate one-to-one or in front of their peers, it's almost a no-no. It's too anxiety-inducing. And sometimes that is, or has been, I'm not saying that I was never like that. I probably was at some point, but being able to articulate something, being able to communicate something verbally with people is possibly fundamental to their future.
Yes.
Right? And so that one-to-one connection with their tutors is absolutely paramount, and it needs to come back quickly.
Absolutely. But, I also feel that when you and I were at Kingston, there was an optimism that this is going to lead somewhere. We didn't have, AI or whoever's going to completely obliterate everything, So, so it's more about, for me, no matter what you and I do in design education, there has to be a greater support network for these kids.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many gaps, there seems to be less time, less space, less failure. I think studio culture, that's disappeared. Tutor time has shrunk. We know that. Is
that because of contact time, though? Yeah, that's because of the changes in contact time. Otherwise, that can be brought back, or of the obligations that students in the UK have, like work obligations or other obligations.
I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think it's a lot more costly these days to do this, and so there are exceptions. There's a cohort in Portsmouth now.
Yeah.
So I was teaching the third years, and there was the first years. They were coming in and working together as a group all of the time in the studio.
Wow.
Without being forced.
But they had the option of doing that.
Yes.
Nobody told them, oh, you don't have a space, or you are hot desking, or, these things like that. That happens in some schools.
I think, Portsmouth has got the space to do that. And it was just wonderful to see. And I was just observing. I didn't really know any of those students, but I used to walk around and talk to them all, and they had a fire that I think certain other years just don't have. And it's because they are intent on turning up, being part of something greater than themselves. And I think that's lost as well a little bit. I felt that at Kingston. I felt we were this collective of talent. And it makes a difference when you go and do your degree show or whatever else you're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel proud to have been there and done that with these people. Absolutely wonderful people. Yeah, I think we need to reintroduce a certain freedom and uncertainty, reintroduce play. I think, listen, it's a volatile world out there, isn't it, at the moment? It's very different to the world that you and I came through, I think, and it can be complex, and it can be very, very complex now. It was complex then, but we can only... Design education has to interdisciplinarity, agility, life skills. And I think the current curriculum and how it's done is just not doing that. It's just not being able to do that. And it needs to change, otherwise you're collectively, you could be setting up a whole generation for failure, I think. And that's quite harsh, stern words, I think.
Do you think in a way the arts are being disadvantaged, maybe,
Yeah.
Because they want them to be disadvantaged, because they are afraid of the arts.
You mean as in universities or setting them up for a fall?
About having an art education, because for me, art education is about realizing that there's always more than two options, whereas most other practices, most other subjects seems to be quite binary. But in our field, there are 10,000 options. There aren't just two.
But in some ways, art education has become something that has made it quite binary, quite siloed. Whereas, again, when I was back at Kingston, yes, I was doing an illustration course, but the world seemed so open to me. And I think, the word you said, we were optimistic. It was fresh. There was an opportunity out there. And I think that is the curriculum to blame for that, perhaps. I think the institutions are to blame for that. The marketisation of design education, the marketisation of of education full stop, I think, is probably to blame to these things.
This is the oil and water I was talking about before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but what can we do? To the audience that's listening to us right now, what can we do tomorrow to make small change and then greater ones? Is there anything we can do, or do we need more resources to do that?
I think we need to, we've touched on it before, but I think we need to be more present. Students need to become... We're educating and nurturing and stewarding future-ready designers. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can only do that in this world if we can teach them to adapt, to collaborate, not just to stay in their box. For that, I think we need the right people telling them the right things. We need more people. We need more practitioners to come back into universities and talk and teach and mentor and show them what's really going on in the industry. That's not to say an awful lot of the tutors aren't themselves practicing, but yeah. I think you definitely need movers and shakers to come back into your house and actually start telling people what's really going on. And we need to do it in a way that we're talking beyond creativity. We're talking, it's about psychology, it's about the news, it's about culture, it's about a deeper understanding. I think that's pretty fundamental. It's been fundamental to my life. It's been fundamental to my career. I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't do what I do. I think budgets are being cut, left, left, right and centre. It's difficult. It's critical that we do something about this right now. I think the curriculum has to change. I'm sorry, it has to change. School art needs to change. If everything costing so much money, no wonder people aren't going to foundation. Not that foundation courses cost any money, they don't. But for another year, these kids need to fund themselves. It's just difficult.
Because it's the most essential part is when they made it not compulsory, when they started making it not compulsory.
Yeah.
That was a huge blow to the degree because, as you know, all this.
Yeah.
You can't turn the first year. You have to have a hybrid first year of kind of a foundation degree. But those that had, a foundation, then you have a mixed.
Yeah.
And you can't put the foundation spirit into the first year. It's impossible.
No, it's a different scenario, isn't it?
It's a different scenario.
Yes. I think also, and this is high on my agenda at the moment, it's about staying curious, and this is me talking to students here. It's talking to educators too. Stay curious. We need to stay grounded in ethical, human-centered design, right? Yeah. We need to. It's not about making stuff look cool, about fleeting trends and all that kind of stuff. Christ, I've done that throughout my life, and it's not very fulfilling. I think we've got a duty as creatives to try and do something positive, about the world and for the human race, I think. And we as creatives, we're the people who do it, historically. So I think that's lost. That seems to be lost. Yeah, don't know.
Is there anything you feel we haven't touched upon, or that you want to sort of expand on something?
Just going. I think I'd like to leave with there's certain things that I think are very, very important. Most of it I'll kind of cover off what I've said already, but this is to everybody. Be brave enough to be uncertain. Allow that to happen. It seems an oddity these days, but it's served me well. That's where all of my good work has begun. That's where the real work begins. This is to students. Don't rush to define yourself too soon. In style, title, outcome, stay curious, stay restless, explore widely, make mistakes loudly, allow people to see that you've made mistakes, for goodness sake. The best work, the most human work, I think, the most impactful work comes from those who have lived, who failed, adapted, and just kept asking questions of themselves and the world around them. On that note, creativity isn't about perfection. We live in this perfect world where we're so uber curated. It's all about perspective. It's about seeing the world differently and helping others do the same. And that's where my life has been, my practice has been, alongside teaching and mentoring people. So take risks, not just in what you make, but in how you think, how you learn. For the third years out there, the world doesn't need more polished portfolios. It just doesn't. It needs people willing to go beyond the obvious and make something true. That's a small word that means a lot. And that's your real job as a creative, as an educator, not to fit in, but to wake people up. Mm-hmm. Yeah? I think waking people up I think that's my job. That's our job. And that goes for both education and the big bad world out there. That's what I do with brands like New Balance and Specialized and Fjord and Pepsi Cola, and just making them understand what's possible.
Well, it's been truly wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast, and keep in touch with the work. Keep in touch with what we're doing.
I will do.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Terence.